So, hello and welcome. We're here today at a rather somber affair for Extinction Rebellion. This is the funeral for nature. We're in Bath, and we have the largest gathering of Red Rebels that we believe has ever been assembled. This is a large, long procession. It's not in the style of a normal Extinction Rebellion, noisy, samba-filled protest. This is absolutely a funeral, and this is a piece of street art, a performance. And I have to say, the passers-by are absolutely transfixed at the grace and the pain that we see through the Red Rebels. People are really stopping and taking a look. We've had lots of people ask, what is this? And it gets a very, very different response than you see from our big, noisy, rowdy events. It feels very poignant that we're doing this in 2024, 5 years after Extinction Rebellion burst onto the scene with the London Rebellion, when we were covered on every channel across the world of what we were doing. And that beginning of raising consciousness, of telling the truths that need to be told, and the desperate need to act now. And 5 years later, we're still on the streets. 5 years later, we're still demanding the need for change and the need for immediate action. And we're on the streets in a different way today. People have come from all across the UK to be part of this somber event and this stream of Red Rebels that are so evocative. I don't wish to encapsulate what I think the Red Rebels are, because they mean something to everyone, something different to everyone. But feel the pain, feel what we're doing. The Red Rebels are coming to an end. We've got most amazing little Red Rebel here. Beautiful young girl. A girl who should be having her whole future in front of her, and yet we know what's coming down the line with the climate emergency. And so here is the funeral pyre. Beautiful and tragic. More Red Rebels coming. Interesting that some of our wonderful outreach team have been trying to give me leaflets. They're doing a great job communicating with people about what we're doing here. It's absolutely transfixing. Guessing that you can begin to hear those drums beating. Funeral drums. As they wind through the streets of Bath. This is an amazing organization from Southwest Extinction Rebellion, together with all of Extinction Rebellion coming together. I'm going to leave you with the drums for a minute. coming up behind the drums at the head of the procession, we have Chris Packham, his stepdaughter Megan McCullen, who are famous naturalists, TV personalities who have come to be part of this. And they're leading the large group of mourners in this funeral procession. People who have come to tell us about the dire emergency that we're facing. There's a brief pause in the action here. It's difficult to see how far back the mourners go. It feels like a really large group. It's a little bit different live stream that we're doing today, because normally we're going up and interviewing all the different people with their different costumes and asking why they're here, what messages they want to bring. But this is a piece of street art. This is and it's not our time to ask them why they're here. We're here. We have spoken with some of them before. So we're going to move along with the crowd. We've come to the end of the mourners. There's another large group of people behind the mourners who are joining along in more standard everyday clothing. So not part of the street art, but part of the emphasis. And even the public is speaking in hushed tones as we come by. There's a sense of purpose and, dare I say, sacredness to this. People understand a funeral. It's incredibly moving to be here because it's so different than our normally loud, riotous, colourful, often humorous, ironic actions that exile is so famous for and which have touched so many hearts. This now is taking it in a very different direction. It's capturing everyone's imagination. So there's no dancing samba, there's no chanting, there's no singing. This is a solemn moment, acknowledging what we're losing, acknowledging what has already been lost. You know, we often feel frustrated because climate change is spoken of as something in the future, and trying to bring home the message that it's something that's happening right, that people, particularly in the global south, right now, that the bees and the butterflies and the insects are all suffering right now. And perhaps this kind of event brings home the reality of that more than any statistics we could read off. Beautiful Mother Nature. There's ivy and wild garlic and strawberry and poppies. so much of the nature that we take for granted. So we're going to, we spoke to a lot of people at the march. We'll share some of those interviews, why they chose to do this and what the messages are that they're bringing today.
My name is Hugh Morgan. I work for Dan Pearson's studio, which is a landscape design company in London. And we were asked about 2 months ago to help sort of conceptualize the planting design for the funeral bier for the figure of nature that's being processed today.
And yourselves, what do you do?
We're all gardeners. I'm a gardener.
We all work in the same industry.
So were you guys local? Like, do we just ask to come along and say, do you want to participate?
Yeah.
Right, and you were almost kind of the person coordinating
Yeah,
it?
I know all of the people here.
Okay.
And when I was asked, I thought it would be really good to ask Joe, Alison, and Rosie. And Hannah.
So
who
what
isn't
was
here.
involved in creating this item?
Lots of foraging for various different plants and moss and bits and pieces, which will all go back to their little homes, and a kind of distillation of lots of different ideas about what would look good.
We wanted to create a very natural environment that felt suitable for this time of the year.
So what was the kind of inspiration for this design, you could say?
It's a simple design. We wanted the plants to be important but also hopeful, and to really show what we're about to lose. So they're wild plants bits of nature like found bird nests, found bracket fungi, things that show us the diversity of what's happening, but also show the beauty of what we're about to lose, because these are the things that we need to preserve. So there's no cultivated things in there, it's all kind of jewel-like, small, green and white, delicate things.
And I think that the sculpture definitely spoke to all of us about fragility, and we wanted to evoke that definitely in the landscape that we made. That notion that everything is balanced on a precipice, and the time is now to kind of really react to that.
I'm trying to create something that's visually quite powerful, because people will be seeing it just out shopping. And I think the fact that it's very green and fresh and alive we were aiming for a contrast within the sea of the red rebels and the black mourners, so working with that in mind was important too.
So you were contacted, you were brought in. How the process of actually producing it, how long did it take? You said it was contacted 2 months ago, but how long was the process?
We had one meeting at Anna's studio to kind of decide on a direction, and then we've spent probably, I don't know, a couple of days each this week gathering materials, and then we did it mainly in an afternoon yesterday, and then today we've arrived on site to kind of do the final touches before the procession at 2.
Excellent. And the statue itself was, I presume, was produced by someone else?
Yeah, that was produced by Anna Gillespie, and it's a real life cast of an actual live human being. You know something more about that, don't you?
She's a mother of 4 children, and a real woman, and the grace of her lying in this funeral bier is extremely moving, because you see the texture of her skin, the fold of her eyelids, her toes, and all of that set within the planting. I've been staring at it for days and still find it very emotional looking at it.
And you mentioned about the people today, what they hope that you think they'll get out of it. The rest of you, do you agree that what do you think people of Bath will get out of this?
It's going to be what is described as a piece of street theatre, and I think that's going to be very powerful, because there'll also be the drummers, so there'll be the sound and something very visual, and so hoping that will communicate the message, which is sort of love and rage and grief, very powerful emotions. So.
Well, thank you for your time. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's hard to describe what's happening here right now. There are all kinds of people watching, and they're speaking in whispers, and if someone has a loud voice, other people are shushing them. The public are very moved by what they're seeing. And the funeral pyre is now passing up through a sort of corridor of red rebels. I think we're trying to get some images of that for you. Slowly but surely it's passing up through. And we're moving on to a circus where I believe there's going to be a bit more performance. There are a lot of statistics that tell us what's happening. I could tell you that nearly 1 in 6 species are threatened with extinction right now in Great Britain. 1 in 6 species. And those numbers are striking. And yet, when you see this, it speaks in a different way. And everyone is just standing in awe of this. So we're going to follow nature on her funeral pyre. She goes through the rows rebels, their hair trailing. More and more people are gathered with cameras around. Our outreach teams are busy handing them leaflets about what's happening, telling them that humans are amazing and have the power to stop the extinctions. Some scientists have said that we should reuse the term extinct when we say 1 in 6 species will become extinct, because this is not a natural event. This is not a comet crashing down from the heavens. This is an extermination, because we know that nature is dying. We know that an ecological crisis is upon us, and we're not acting to stop it. And that's what makes it an extermination, because there's a willfulness in the refusal to act. There is a willfulness in deniers and the climate delayers who would say, we can't afford to take action now. Telling us that the cost has already been high, and the cost will become greater and greater. So we're approaching to circular area, a circus, with very impressive Regency architecture, some amazing trees that look to be somewhat like the London plane trees, I know, but obviously they call them something different here. Bath planes, don't know. And I believe the funeral pyre is going to the centre, and the Red Rebels are going to be moving around in different ways. So we're going to see how this pans out. It's like everybody is here holding their breath. The solemnity of this is just striking. Springs like this will we have? Farmers are saying that this could be the worst crop ever for wheat because they couldn't get it in the ground. We had 6 months of record rain in England. And if we lose the wheat crop here in the UK, we've been able to buy it abroad, but the emergency is striking other places as well. How many more springs will we be able to stand here and is in crisis. And we're no longer just sounding the alarm. We're bringing the reality of what many are already suffering. We must remember the crises in the Horn of Africa, in so many places throughout the world. Nature is suffering in so many places, and it's not just humans who bear the cost. All the animals, the insects, the birds who did nothing to deserve this are going hungry or dying. The world as we know it is changing. So many precious things are being lost. I invite you to reflect for yourself. What do these red rebels mean to you? And as we reflect on the meaning of these red rebels for us, let's go and hear from the person who first imagined the red rebel as a symbol of what we're trying to do. We've got an interview with Doug Francisco.
My name is Doug Francisco from the Invisible Circus, and I was the sort of founder member of the Red Rebel Brigades.
Okay, so what are the Red Rebels?
Well, we're an ethereal kind of androgynous performance protest troupe that started in London for an Extinction and Rebellion spring uprising in 2019. So it's actually our 5-year anniversary 3 days ago or something.
Oh, that's good. So, why did you bring it about? Why did it come into existence?
I guess it was quite a personal thing at the time. I just wanted to do something performance-based. Like I'm a ringmaster, and I work with words a lot and do a lot of talking. But I wanted to sort of respond in a different way and do something that would be a wake-up call in a different kind of way. And also, there's a lot of tension and a lot of shouting and a lot of stress in that sort of protest environment.
Besides the odd birds around as well.
Everybody wanting to get their voices heard and stuff. And I just wanted to do something that was a bit sort of softer and a bit more expressive and emotive, I guess.
I mean, Exile is almost notorious for having lots of samba bands around banging, clashing around. So was this the opposite of it?
I guess, it wasn't sort of an intentional juxtaposition, but there's something about the silence as well. Like people, and we didn't really know how people would respond, but people respond very emotionally to it. And also, if you're silent, you can't be misquoted because you're not saying anything. And yeah, and then it just kind of spread from that one time we did it. So people started doing it all around the world. So it's like, I don't know.
So how does that feel? I mean, I've seen Red Rebels down in Cape Town in South Africa.
Yeah,
How does that make you feel?
yeah, really like heartwarming and humbling to. Yeah, it's quite emotional to think of that. How many people have done it over 5 years in all these different places, and been kept quite true to the sort of way we did it initially, in that kind of very peaceful, very soft kind of approach. And when you put that up against a kind of a harder police presence or something like that, it sort of just softened the whole thing and kind of equalised everyone as well. So it kind of takes, I don't know, it takes a bit of that authority away from authority figures. And yeah, I found it had a very like equalising thing and put everybody in the same place, as we're all in the same place with our environment and with the climate crisis. So it was nice to take out the stereotypes of protesters and of policemen and just be people in a way.
Today, what has brought you here today?
Well, yeah, Rob's crazy idea. it was Rob's idea, really. But yeah, he got in touch with me and another friend, Mandy, from the group, saying about doing something, you know, trying to get a lot of Red Rebels together to do this Funeral for Nature thing. Would we be interested? Which I said we were, because we're based in Bristol, so it's kind of in our neighbourhood as well. So yeah, our aspiration was to get sort of 200 Red Rebels together, and I think we're at 400 plus at the moment. So yeah. So just to kind of, to do something en masse like that as well, that would be a very powerful artistic message.
What are your expectations about what the citizens of Bath are going to take this in today?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it'll have quite a hard impact, like a big impact. It is the people's reaction, and some people are like, "Oh, you're crazy, get a job or whatever," and other people like start crying and saying thank you and stuff. So it's always interesting, the public response to the performance. But yeah, I mean, I anticipate a kind of, it's usually a very emotional, on the most part, it's a very emotional sort of response from people, and then so the few negative voices you might get are kind of comedy, really. But yeah, it creates a very very emotional ambience, really. So I'm, hoping for a lot of empathy, a lot of groundswell of support, and some positive outcomes, and more public engagement about the biodiversity crisis we face in this country and the world.
Well, thank you for your time. Have a good day today.
Nice to talk to you.
It was really lovely to hear more about the birth of the Red Rebels, who have now, by the way, entirely encircled this circus. It's quite extraordinary. This whole area completely bound around by these silent, peaceful, and yet so strong Red Rebels. And you may only be able to hear the sound of my voice because everything is completely silent. All the passers-by, everyone is held in this space, in this time. So many people have come to bring this message here. The Red Rebels are all the same, and yet each one so unique in what they bring to this. Their presence seems to remind us that more is possible, that more can be done. It's a peaceful yet urgent cry. see how many people have stopped to be part of this. Will these scenes echo in the chambers of power? It's people power that we need now more than ever. It's people power. It's people coming out. It's people making a stand. The time of waiting for others to do the work is finished. The time is now. The dying is happening now. The flooding is happening now. The heat waves are happening now. The drought is heading towards us. And this is an urgent call to stand and act. Five years ago, many of us were standing in Oxford Circus or on Waterloo Bridge or at Marble Arch, trying to create a different world. We decided that we had to create the world in which we wanted to live. And Extinction Rebellion and so many others have been doing this for a long time. But we're not there, my friends. We are not yet there. We've been burdened by a government who refused to take the climate ecological emergency seriously. A government that I believe will go down in infamy for locking up peaceful protesters, for making some of the most draconian laws against protest to exist anywhere on the planet. History will look back on this time and not understand. Because once you understand, once you see the depth of the crisis we face, how can you not act? If you have the power, how can you not exercise it for all humankind and for all life on this one jeweled planet that is our only home? We contemplate our beautiful Mother Nature. I was fortunate to be able to speak with Chris Packham prior to the beginning of this march. He had some very wise words for us about the clash between the need for hope and the reality of the dying ecology that we face.
Yep. Hi, I'm Anna Gillespie, and I live here in Bath, and I'm a sculptor.
Okay, so you designed the sculpture for the. I've been pronouncing it wrong. So what is it exactly?
Well, it's a funeral bier.
Yes, a funeral
not
bier.
beer. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yes.
Fundamentally, we're expressing Mother Nature and our grief for what's happening. At various times we've called her Gaia. Mother Earth. What do you call her? It. Life on planet.
So the actual inspiration from the sculpture itself is based on Gaia, or a kind of interpretation of that?
Yeah, I don't want to specify, because I don't. People have their different ways of thinking about this, but I think when you see her, you'll know where you are in relation to her. She is Earth.
And why did you want to get involved in this?
Okay, well, I worked with Rob Delius before on another project when COP was happening. And in fact, a lot of my work is about climate change, or not so much about climate change, but our human response to it. The fact that we just find it so hard to take it on board and respond. I'll make a sculpture at the moment called Hear No Evil, people blocking their ears. So that's why I want to get involved, because I'm really worried. I'm worried is too small a word for what I feel.
And what are you hoping the citizens of Bath are going to see or sort of feel today?
Do you know, yes, it's for the people of Bath. Yes, it's for the media, all of that. But I know people who are coming to mourn, to actually express themselves. And I think there's a need for that. I think people feel pretty desperate, actually. Politicians aren't acting. I mean, yes, one can have hopeful days. There are hopeful days. There is hope. There's so much churning away. In fact, I think it's not the politicians who are churning. It's happening in the courts. It's happening in industry. The change is happening. But what it's like. There are days when one feels desperate. And I think there's many people here coming to express that as much as their hope that we can turn this round.
Thank you for your time.
So they're about ready to move the pyre again. Beautiful young red rebel who makes me think so much about the young people today and what is coming their way. The young people in the global south who are already suffering so much. She is so strong here today. So strong playing her role. I worry about today's youth and the strength they need to get through the storm that's coming. The drums beat more urgently now. They echo off of the circle and surround us. Nature is on her way, is on the move. We can see Chris Packham and Megan McCubbin, who are there watching this procession. So many people standing in witness. I'm really struck by the beauty of it. Couldn't ask for a lovelier April day. As we warn that there may not be many more lovely April days to come. So as we process back with this beautiful view up the hill towards those majestic trees, the beautiful red rebels tugging at our heartstrings. I promised you earlier you'd hear from Chris Packham. I'm hoping we can bring some of his wise words to you now.
Great, Chris, it's amazing that you've come to be here, at this really important action. And what I'm really curious about is one of the things that really strikes me about your work is you often talk about a message of hope and that we have to have hope. And yet here we're at this funeral for nature. What does that mean to you?
Well, I see the funeral as a warning. I mean, this is a portent of what's coming if we don't act. And maybe we're here today to scare people into action. I'm not someone who fears fear. I think fear is a very important emotion for us to recognise and use. In a natural sense, fear promotes fight or flight, where there's nowhere to fly to, so we've got to fight. And today what we're saying is we've got to fight for our nature. And we know that nature is in a very perilous predicament. I've presided over catastrophic destruction of habitats and species in my lifetime. And we continue to look at the statistics of these animals that are accelerating towards extinction. But what gives me the hope in that equation is the fact that whilst we've been charting those declines, we've also been putting together a very effective toolkit that would allow us to restore, recover, reinstate and reintroduce that nature. Our problem is simple. We've been too timid, and we haven't been doing that rapidly enough and broadly enough, and that's why we find ourselves having to march through the streets of Bath, telling people that they've got to wake up and make a difference.
Yeah, so this is part of really telling the truth of how bad it's gotten.
I think that unfortunately, our ability to convey the truth is often limited. Mainstream media aren't helping us because they say our truth is bad news. But if you don't know bad news, you can't turn it into good. So we've got to make sure that people understand the gravity of the situation. And I think that all too often we're keen to celebrate our small successes but not acknowledge the catastrophic gross failures. And I'm here as a 63-year-old and I've witnessed those in my lifetime. I'm living with that and it's very uncomfortable. I can't lie to you, one of the things that got me out of bed this morning with a sniffy cold and all the way here to Bath on a crowded train full of football fans was guilt. Because I should have done more. We all should have done more. And then if we had and done it sufficiently urgently, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in today. And I do honestly think we're moving towards a last stand when it comes to fighting for some of our nature. Look at the state of our chalk streams in the south of England. Look at the state of some of our bird populations, our butterfly populations. We've just recorded the lowest populations ever since the 1970s for some species last year. And this year isn't looking very hopeful for some of those either. You know, how far does it have to go before we finally start acting? What's going to happen? Is it the disappearance of a charismatic, enigmatic species, which is important to our culture? Is it the last cuckoo? Is it the swallow that doesn't arrive to make a summer? What will finally tip us over the edge and into action? I'd rather not wait for that moment. I'm a man who prefers prevention to cure, and we do have the ability to prevent these disappearances and extinctions. So let's just get on with it.
Absolutely, get on with the job. That's brilliant. What would you say then for folks back home who are watching this? What would you like them to step up and do now?
Look, when you read about the decline or disappearance of a species that you don't get to see, it may not just be in the UK, it could be in another part of the world. It's difficult to have a connection to that. It's disempowering. It's easy to feel that you're tiny and small and you couldn't possibly make a difference, that you're just a drop in the ocean. But what is an ocean but a multitude of drops? We all have the capacity to empower ourselves to make a difference, and you can do that every day in many ways. How can we do it? Well, first of all, most of us use banks. Why continue to bank with banks which are basically fueling the fossil fuel industry, which is damaging our climate? Why continue to eat too much meat, which is damaging our biodiversity, creating ghastly issues of animal welfare and personal welfare issues as well? If the vast majority of people, not all very sadly, in the UK can choose what they put into their mouths, and that's coming from Ecosystem Services Earth. That's our greatest daily connection with nature. Even if you're living in the heart of the city and you see nothing green all day, if you eat, you're connecting yourself to nature. Think about how you can make those differences. The small changes in your life, if you make them and they're positive, will make you feel better, and collectively they will begin to make a difference. And ultimately, when it comes to making a big difference, we've got an election coming up. And it's time for us to peacefully and democratically find some people to represent us, who represent our views when it comes to nature restoration and recovery. So at this point in time, we ought to be saying to those candidates and those MPs, if you want my vote, I want you to help us restore nature now.
Brilliant. Thank you for everything that you've been doing on behalf of nature, and for coming out and standing with people, because we're at the 5th anniversary of the big London rebellion in April 2019. It was all happening right now, and a lot of us have been here since then.
That's right.
Out on the streets, and you coming really, really buoys people and gives them hope that people in positions of influence are hearing and speaking out, and that means a lot to us.
Well, look, I'm very fortunate that I've been given a small voice, because I talk about wildlife and science on television. But my duty is to exercise that voice for good. What do you want me to do? Go home, have a bottle of wine, sit down and watch Netflix? I'm not in it for that. Yeah. I'm in it because I was a kid that picked up a ladybird before I was 3 years old, and it ignited a spark that has burned to this day when it comes to the wonder of life. For me, it's a vocational thing. This is the real business, if you want to know at this point in time, because my duty is to try and generate an affinity for that life through the media work that I do, but also to stand up and campaign forthrightly for the preservation of that life. I don't have a choice, so I was always going to be on the train this morning, coming here, even if I am snivelling. But I'm staying away from everyone so they can't catch my cold.
Well, it's a beautiful day. Hopefully the sunshine will give you some vitamin D, make that a little bit better. And we look forward to seeing you on the route then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've moved into the centre of Bath now. There's quite a lot of passers-by, lots of people around getting a lot of exposure for this. And I'm just reflecting on that clip that we had Chris Packham, a man who has done so much to try to make people aware of the beauty of nature, of the little ladybird crawling on his finger that excited him so much. And it was interesting, a word that he used, what made him get out of bed was guilt. Guilt that so much has happened in his lifetime and he hasn't been able to, stop that from happening. And it's interesting to explore the different emotions that all of this brings up. This kind of somber event is really serving to kind of put us all a bit more in touch with the emotions we're feeling with this. And one of the things that we talk a lot about in Extinction Rebellion is this a different idea of hope instead of guilt, but not the sort of empty hope like, oh, I hope everything will get better. I hope they will sort it out, whoever the vague they are, whether they're scientists, government, or whatever. There's a difference between that sort of open-ended hope and active hope. There's an active hope in getting active and actually doing something to try to make a difference. And I think one of the realities that we all face, those who are concerned about the climate and ecological emergency and those who choose to take action, is we don't know if this is going to work. If we put our hands on our hearts, we don't know what it's going to take to drive this world to action, to drive the powers in charge to action. Being active, taking action, being part of something that wants to care for the planet, that wants to nourish nature and nourish us through it, that wants to care for humanity, all of humanity across the globe. There is an active hope in that, in making community, in making those connections, of recognizing that nature isn't something out there that we have. Nature isn't something that we go out into. We are part of nature. We are nature. And so, like this, we are defending ourselves. And that becoming part of something where you're uniting with people who understand the perils we face, and when looking at those perils, choose to step up and do something about it. That's what gives us the strength to carry on together and to look at forging a new world together. It inspires us to try to break the back of the banking system. The banking system which is backing fossil fuels that we know are destroying the planet. The banking system that's giving the money to the 1%, with untold suffering happening across the planet. It's taking action against that. It's taking action against governments which refuse to do their duty, which refuse to hold up their end of the social contract to look after and protect us. It's by taking action we can come together and find hope together as we seek to solve the seemingly insurmountable problems that face us. It's only by coming together that we can find real hope, that we can escape the nagging sense of guilt. Gosh. So we're walking behind the drummers right now, beating this solemn beat. Directly behind the drummers, we do have Chris Packham, who we heard from not very long ago. And we've got a group of mourners with some rather amazing hats. We take a look at those hats. Chris is wearing one, Megan McCummon is wearing one. A whole group of people, hats, telling the story of the extinction crisis that we're facing now. And again, remembering that this is a performance art piece designed to provoke through visual imagery. And we've got an artist who helped design these extraordinary hats, who spoke to us earlier today about his inspiration and what he hopes the message of these hats will be. Let's hear from Alan.
Okay, so I'm Alan Dunn and I'm a local sculptor, and I've been involved with XR projects in the past and a lot of agitprop stuff going back a long time before XR. But this project really caught my eye, and I was asked whether I would help out on the art side, which I was more than pleased to do. Came up with the idea for the hats and then decorating the hats and theming the hats in terms of loss of diversity of nature and species and eradication of habitats. And that's what we've done. So we've ended up with, I think, over 20 decorated sculptural hats, which I hope will catch the public's interest, and just as images will also tell a story about climate degradation.
That's great. I mean, they're really striking hats, and I'm sure that
it was interesting how much people wanted to engage with. Let me have a hat. You know, there wasn't a sales problem on this one. Everybody was quite happy to have a hat, no matter how silly it was.
Yeah.
So that was quite gratifying. And in fact, they got sillier as we went along.
But there's really a serious
message. There's a serious
underneath.
message in it. Of course there is. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's dead animals here. There's habitats which have been spoilt. We've got the degradation of the soil through use of chemical fertilizers. It's all included in the hats, which is quite an odd idea, isn't it?
Wow, those drums were just beating in my heart. That was so powerful, echoing off of these buildings as we have so many people who are stopping and pausing to think about this peaceful march and what we're losing. We talk about disrupting business as usual in Extinction Rebellion, and that disruption has in many cases taken the form of disrupting an intersection, disrupting a road, occupying a building. But there's something else that happens that I think is even more profound in a performance art piece like this. It's disrupting people's thinking. It's disrupting business as usual in an entirely different way, because you're going about your daily business, engaging in your shopping and whatever you need to do on a Saturday. And the reality of this marches through your life. Everybody has their phones out. Everybody is engaging with this and thinking about what this means. It's not intimidating in any way, and yet it is deeply compelling. Deeply compelling. And so the mourners are on their way, following the funeral dirge. And we've got some wonderful drone footage of when we were at the circus with the Red Rebels. And that's a truly stunning image that we see with the funeral pyre in the middle of nature and the Red Rebels surrounding her, calling out to us. And the mourners around, feeling the pain in their hearts. Extinction Rebellion has always done things which are visually striking. It's a strong artistic. Art speaks in a way, speaks in a different way than those numbers and statistics. And that's what we're doing in this moment, is connecting with hearts as we walk up towards the famous baths in Bath, the famous Roman baths where people came for healing. Those things that have been here for 2,000 years and was the home to Celtic gods before then. What will humanity be 2,000 years from now? What will the planet be 2,000 years from now? What will it be 10 years from now? I'm impressed as I walk by how many different people have leaflets in their hands. Our outreach mourners have been up ahead explaining what's happening, giving them a chance to engage in what we're doing, giving them the chance to understand the messages that we're sending out. As we move here alongside the Roman ruins. Those drums are echoing through my whole body. The strength of this is hard to convey. I don't know how it's coming over to you all at home. But it's one of the most impressive actions I've ever experienced. So we're here in the center of Bath. So many people out enjoying the weather and looking at the spectacle. being jolted a bit out of our daily lives to think about what is in some ways feels like the elephant in the room. It's the climate and ecological crisis. It should be the number one story on every newspaper page. And yet it's so seldom mentioned, or it's buried as a small story. Actions like this tell us it needs to be front and center.
Sorry.
With people who have been red rebels for a very long time, and yet loads of these rebels are doing this for the first time today. To have this unprecedented gathering of 400 souls, lots of them for the very first time came to be part of this important action. And I must say, it's magnificent. It's very, very striking. A lot of organization has gone into making this extraordinary performance art day possible. And we have another pre-recorded interview with Rob, who has put in an enormous amount of time and energy. There are so many people working behind the scenes to make something like this possible. And so we've got to stop and talk to Rob before he got into costume today. And he can share with you some of his thoughts about the funeral for nature.
Yeah, so I'm Rob. I'm one of the organisers. I was the one who put forward the idea actually for this event, and yeah, just amazed and that it's all coming together, and it's a fantastic energy here today.
Can you put in your own words what actually is the event about?
Yeah, so it's a funeral for nature, and so what we're doing is we're raising awareness about the state of nature in the UK today. So there was a report which came out last year called The State of Nature, and it said we're one of the most nature depleted countries in the world, and I just thought that was so shocking, and that not enough people were talking about it. So I wanted to do something which would actually kind of get that message across to everyone. So, you know, we've got together this huge gathering of Red Rebels and mourners, and we just hope the size of people of the group here is just going to send this sort of SOS message about nature.
The Red Rebels, why were the Red Rebels chosen? Or?
Yeah, so I saw them on a march which was a Unite Survive march in Bath end of last year, and they were so striking. There was only a small bunch of them, and they're just so powerful, their kind of presence that they had, and I just thought, I wonder, if I imagine what that would be like if you had, say, 250 of them, how powerful that would be. So went to XR, and they really liked the idea, and we kind of worked together on it, and it's just built and built, and from kind of an original plan of 250, we're now at 400, and all of the mourners on top of that. So it's just going to be so amazingly powerful.
So personally, why did you want to get involved in this? What was your personal reason?
I just think there's been so much focus on climate change, which is, and the crisis, which has been really, it's great that there has been so much focus on this, but we need to also be talking about nature. And I've read somewhere that there's 6 times as much news coverage on the climate crisis as there is on the nature crisis. And I just wanted to get more people talking about it. And there's some really shocking statistics, like in the last 20 years we've lost 60% of flying insects. So that's like your bees, your butterflies. And I just thought we need to get people emailing their MPs, telling their friends, their family what's going on to get more change happening.
Oh, thank you for your time. Have a good luck today.
Thank you.
So yes, the nature crisis, indeed. We sometimes, as a shorthand, talk about the climate crisis, but we do in XR specifically say the climate and ecological crisis, and that's what we're really bringing to the forefront today. Up ahead, you can see some of the lovely stewards who are part of Extinction Rebellion, making things like this happen. Now they're up there in the high-vis jackets, they're blocking the road so that this procession can happen safely. They will only block it as long as we're passing. Won't be that long. We'll get through here and move on. But there are people like our stewards. There are people, first aiders here walking along. So many people involved in making something like this happen. And that's really important for you, those of you at home who maybe haven't come out to something like this. Maybe you think to yourself, oh, I could never dress up like that. You might surprise yourself after a while, but you don't have to dress up like that. There are all different kinds of roles of people who are needed to make something happen. So you can be a steward and help people move along. You can join the live stream team with us. You can, if you're a first aider, we always need somebody around in case there are issues. People can fall over, small things can happen. So it takes a whole community of people to make a large happening like this. And really have to express gratitude. We've got somebody here in front of me, the non-violence and de-escalation in the white vest, in case there are people causing trouble, and it looks like there are a couple of young people being a little bit rowdy there. The de-escalators are particularly trained to exactly that, de-escalate the situation, to bring it down, to avoid confrontation and manage the situation. So many people joining together so that we can move peacefully, calmly, non-violently through the streets of Bath in a safe way, both for ourselves, but also for the public. Non-violence is at the heart of everything that we do in Extinction Rebellion. The violence in the system can be overwhelming, and it can be so easy to try to strike back with violence. But it's only by changing the paradigm, by changing the narrative, by doing something different, by coming together in peace and love, that is the way that we will be able to make a difference. And I have to say myself, as I walk along, I see a lot of old friends here who have been doing this for a very long time. And the love and the care and that sense of community here is absolutely palpable. Having gone through the centre of town, it was much rowdier there. The quiet funeral presence that we had at the beginning of the march on slower streets disappeared for a bit, but we've now come down a small alleyway. And the gentle peacefulness and the gentle urgency returned for. And when we think about what we might do and get involved, we had a really inspirational conversation earlier today with Megan McCubbin, who is Chris Packham's very well-known stepdaughter. I'm sure you know her. And brought some youthful inspiration. Somebody who's been so connected to nature and ecology and wildlife as a very small child with Chris. And she spoke to us about how glad she was to be part of this today, and how important it is to step up. So let's hear from Megan McCubbin.
So you've come out to the Funeral for Nature today. It's actually quite a solemn occasion to some of the TV that you do where you're celebrating all these beautiful animals and things. Why come to a funeral for nature?
I'm coming to a funeral for nature because nature is in crisis. You know, it's my job to celebrate wildlife and all the beauty that it brings to everybody's life, and just the greatness that it can enhance us and our environment. But, you know, it's not anywhere near enough to love nature now. We can't just simply appreciate it and feel passionate by the birds singing or the frogs in the ground, whatever it may be, because that nature that we love is in dire, dire trouble. You know, we see declines every single day. We see things in peril, habitat destruction, climate change. All of these massive issues are taking its grip, and are taking their grip tightly. And unless we do something, raise awareness by beautiful artistic things like this, where it is solemn, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. So it's really important to come to places like this, to feel empowered, to connect with like-minded people. And ultimately, it's a festival of purpose, although I'm not sure we can class a funeral as a festival today, but it's got a really important message.
Yeah. And how do you feel about it being, this is almost more of a performance art in a way than a sort of standard protest. Does that resonate with you?
I love that this is a performance piece. I think it's really powerful. It's going to engage new audiences. And when we're talking about climate change and biodiversity loss, so often we're focused on the nitty-gritty science, you know, the percentages, the declines, the statistics, all very important, absolutely all has its place, but arts and culture comes into that, and it must be woven throughout our actions. But to be here with this fabulous shark hat that someone made me, which I'm totally in love with, it's great because it just highlights all of these different skill sets, and it brings people together in a new way, and hopefully gets more people into this discussion.
Yeah, brilliant. And for those who are watching this back home, what would you like them to be doing next?
I'd like you to connect to one another, to talk about what your fears and frustrations are for our precious planet. You know, you're not alone in this, and sometimes we all feel like it can be a bit much, especially when you're facing this dire circumstances in front of all of us. But when we start connecting and talking about it, actually that problem starts getting smaller, especially then when you start taking individual action, because there's so much that we can do, you know, whether it be in our own spaces, but also beyond that, just being comfortable and using your voice. And that's a scary step to take, using your voice and becoming an activist. Now, I wear being an activist like a badge of honour. I'm really proud of it. But I personally feel that that word has been weaponised by the government, by the media. From time to time, it's become a negative thing. You've become a pain, you've become a nuisance. But it's time to take that word back and take that meaning back, because activism can mean whatever you want it to mean to you. You know, it could be that you want to go out and do some guerrilla gardening, put some seeds somewhere. It could be that you want to go knock on your neighbour's door and say, hey, can I put a hedgehog highway in? Or it could be that you want to come to a protest like this today and find out what it's really about, not just how it's represented, but what it's really like here on the ground. Whatever activism means to you, as long as you're just doing something that's different from what you did yesterday, then you're winning.
Isn't she absolutely amazing? I so enjoyed talking to Megan McCubbin. And so many things that she said in there really, really resonated with me, that this is a festival of purpose. Yeah, it's a festival of purpose, not a festival in the sense of a jolly, but it is a gathering of purpose. This is what we're doing, deeply, deeply moved by purpose. And reclaiming the word activist is that extraordinary. Let's reclaim that, because it has been weaponized against us. This too is activism. Beautiful art touching our heart and telling a story that isn't being covered in the media. This is a truly remarkable form of activism today. Now, all the red rebels have just veiled themselves, and they're holding hands now. I don't know what that means. I'm standing in a long colonnade here with the funeral, the red rebels all standing so silently and beautifully. The funeral pyre bearers have been given a short rest. They've set the pyre down. It must be a burden to carry nature through the streets. We're slowly beginning to move out now. The red rebels up ahead are starting to move, but it ripples like a slow wave. It hasn't reached down here yet. And that beautiful young girl who shouldn't have to be here. When I look at our youth and the youth activists here and around the world, so many powerful young activists in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, having their childhoods taken away from them because they're standing up and calling for change when the adults aren't doing it. The carelessness of youth, the carelessness that youth should have, in many cases is being taken away as they are turned into activists to defend their communities, to defend nature, to look to feeding their family and securing rights. It's where we see that nature is being defiled, whether it be through fossil fuel extraction, through mining, through exploitative cash crops. Wherever we see nature exploited, people too are exploited. These go hand in hand. And justice for all life on earth is all life on earth. Animal, invertebrate, people, trees, flowers, the food we eat, the things that nourish us. All of these have been changed resigned to a system that doesn't care about the future, that doesn't care about what is being left behind for the next generations. It doesn't care about the death and destruction happening right now. Indigenous peoples being forced off their land across the globe. A terrible tragedy for them, a terrible tragedy for the land and all life living on it. This is what we want to talk about today. And every single person I'm passing has their phone out. They can't help but be touched by this. You're right in the heart of Bath. Lovely little young person. And so we march onwards. Our lovely stewards ensuring that there is space for this funeral march, keeping everyone safe as nature comes through. Will they be motivated to act? Will they understand that the time is now? The time is not 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, as our government would have you believe. The act was 50 years ago. And short of a TARDIS to go back, then the time to act is right now. So our trees from Mother Nature lowered to pass through. A stunning cathedral standing before us. There's such glory when we face such suffering now. The Amazon rainforest nears the rainforest has its entire system. It actually has its own, creates its own, and it's not the case that you can chop down half of it and the other half will just carry on with business as usual. We're not quite sure what the tipping point is, but it's somewhere around maybe 25%, maybe 30%. No one's quite sure because nobody's ever destroyed a planetary rainforest of that kind. But what we know is we are perilously close to that number of 25, 30%, whatever it will be. But the entire rainforest will collapse with devastating consequences. And so here we stand in front of this edifice to secular and religious power. We stand in front of the past. We stand in front of the power of the past, saying it's time to do things differently. It's time to put Mother Nature front and center. No longer can we take and take and take from nature. Right now, we use 1.75 planets per year. We use almost 2 planets worth of resources. And we can no longer continue to consume like that. We can no longer build these massive stone buildings, these stone pavements. Where does the water go? Where does the rain go? Where is the greenery? We're moving back some of the crowd here while the Red Rebels are moving up through this here. I can see the beautiful spring flowers, the cowslip on Mother Earth. Some of the Red Rebels are moving through the crowd now. I think I need to get out of the way so that this session can move on. The interest from the public is extraordinary, and it's good to see them here, fascinated by this. And the drums beat ever more strongly. Let the drum beat roll over you. So strong and powerful. That's the beat of resistance. That's the beat that says, this is a funeral for nature, but we're not going to stand by while all of nature is destroyed. That's the beat of change. There's Chris Packham and Megan McCubbin coming through, along with those fabulous hats again. I really want a hat. Hats are amazing. We're headed off somewhere where I think fairly soon we're going to be having some speeches. And we have some impromptu sax joining us. So we're going to hook in with the mourners here. Bit of a traffic jam here of people who are watching this and struck by it. Oh, Chris is coming back this way. So trying to work out a little bit of what's happening now. There's a square here we're gathered in. The drum beating more insistently. And we seem to be going back. I'm absolutely certain that the organizers know what they're doing, and we're following along for the ride. Going back into an area where there are a lot of people right here in the heart of Bath, which is wonderful because there's so much. Oops, we have a runaway. So much exposure to what we're doing here. So many people seeing our beautiful, peaceful Red Rebels, speaking to them. Yep. So there's a bit of a bottleneck here where we've got some XR people coming towards us and some going away. It seems that we're doing a about face, I believe.
Yeah, where do we end up? This is the biggest space, isn't it? No.
Let's just switches on and happen there.
Speaker space in this one.
So I'm on the XR live stream right now, and you're one of our de-escalators, aren't you? Would you be up to talking to us about de-escalating?
Oh, I'll try. Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh,
Well,
the speeches are starting.
There's so many more than were marching in the funeral procession. Hello. Can I move up? Yeah, so I'm a bit short, so I'm having to kind of go on my tiptoes. My name is Megan McCubbin, and I'm a zoologist and wildlife TV presenter and campaigner. And I remember coming to one of my first protests or events like this. And at that period in time, I was at a meeting, I was working in Lush, and we had a discussion about how to tackle illegal wildlife crime. And I came out of that meeting louder. Is that any better? Okay, I'm going to shout. I'm really sorry, everyone who's closer. So I remember the very first time I went to a protest like this, and I didn't know what to expect because I just come out of a meeting at Lush where I was working at the time, but we were discussing how to tackle wildlife crime. And I came out of that meeting and made my way to London Underground feeling disheartened and quite frankly pretty angry. And at that point in time, there was a family coming up the escalator behind me, and there were children saying our future now. And I took my ears and I turned around and I followed them and I went down the escalator and right back up again. And I found myself on stage. And I remember being paralysed, stood in the middle of this action, feeling honestly pretty emotional because I'd never seen anything like it. Because it was everything that the mainstream media said it wasn't. The mainstream media often talks about these kinds of actions as destructive, annoying, and nuisance. But I found the entire opposite. Motivation than ever. Now we know, while the people that have marched are very aware of the state of our climate and biodiversity, for those standing around us who are just joining in and listening in, we live in one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. It is absolutely terrifying how little nature we have. And I see this all the time when reporting about our wildlife. It's decline after decline after decline. And as a community, we're trying to do the ethical thing, we're trying to do more. But it's getting increasingly harder to do that when our government, our leading bodies, are trying to hide the truth from us. The fact that we can still eat a critically endangered species of shark in our fish and chip shop because it's labelled as something actually that doesn't exist is an embarrassment. The fact that we're still wearing fur, which is labelled as fake because our government says that that's okay, and we don't know about it, is horrific. And the fact that we're still going out, or we're seeing people going out fox hunting or trail hunting, saying that no foxes get harmed, when we know, in fact, what a smokescreen that is shocking. Now, activism is a word that has been dragged through the mud. In my history classrooms, when I heard about the suffragettes and the civil rights movement, I felt empowered. I thought, wow, these activists going out there, noticing a change needs to be made and getting on and doing something. Activism now, modern activism, environmental activism, doesn't get the same limelight, and it absolutely should. It's our duty to reclaim that word and say what activism can mean, what we want it to mean to us. And that could mean something very different to me than it means to you. And quite frankly, I wear the badge of activism with proudness. I wouldn't want to be anything but. So thank you to every single person. Thank you to every single person who is organised today, because it is a mammoth task to organise all of this. To the beautiful Red Rebels who've done such a fantastic job. To this Thank you for coming out and showing your passion and thoughts, and I can only apologise for my colleagues who do not stand among us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Before I get started, I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you to the public for showing respect for our reverence. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Was ours protest today, or was it beautiful performance art? A mix of both, I feel, because we're here to communicate something very solid. Ours has been a foam funeral for nature. Now, not all of you will have your finger on the pulse of the natural world in the way that Megan and I do, and perhaps many of you do too. But I don't need to tell you, as you watch the TV and you look at social media, that our nature is in a desperate situation. We presided over in our lifetimes catastrophic declines, to the extent that, as Megan says, we live in one of the most nature-depleted set of nations on the planet. We, an alleged nation of animal lovers, live in one of the most nature-depleted places in the world. One of the things that motivates me to join Extinction Rebellion, the Red Rebels, and all of the other artists and protesters today is tragically guilt. I was inspired by ladybirds and tadpoles in a tiny back garden in Southampton in 1963. I never thought that in my lifetime I would need to campaign to protect the very simple things among us. But those simple things have begun to disappear. And I think we have to be careful with our language. We mustn't say that we've lost them. If we use the word lost, it appears that we've inadvertently misplaced them. Let's be clear. We've destroyed them, and we've destroyed their habitats. Now, you don't have to close your eyes, but you might want to, because I'm going to ask you to think, when was the last time you saw a hedgehog? When was the last time you crept out of your house with a torch, knelt on the ground, looked at its grizzled snout and the sparkle in its eye? When was the last time you turned the radio down in bed to listen to the twittering of house sparrows or house martins under your eaves? When was the last time you saw a small cobweb butterfly? Did you kneel down and creep up to it to admire that beautiful, burnished, metallic sheen on its wings? When was the last time you smelled an English dog rose? When was the last time you stopped in a hedgerow and pulled that towards you so you could get that scent? Because maybe those things have just slipped away. Maybe they're no longer part of your life because they're no longer part of our communities. And there is the tragedy. That's the tragedy that's brought us in black to the streets of Bath this afternoon. And our mission here is to strike fear into our own hearts. Do we really want to preside over a real funeral to nature? Now, as a pragmatic biologist, I can tell you that whatever we do to this planet, life will continue. We've had mass extinction events in the past. Many of you will know, of course, that 65 million years ago, a relatively large asteroid crashed into the planet and put an end to the dinosaurs, and they were in trouble anyway. And if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here. Mammals would never have got their chance. So if we extinguish ourselves and we extinguish most of our life on this planet, it will bounce back, and it will be just as diverse and perhaps even more beautiful than the life that we've had. But there's a difference, isn't there? That was a mass extinction event precipitated by external forces. What we're presiding over is a mass extermination event because we are perpetrating it. And as the most adaptable, creative, imaginative, intelligent species that has yet appeared on this planet, do we really want it on our conscience that we destroy life on Earth, that we destroy human life on Earth as well? I don't think we do. I don't think we want it as individuals, or we want it collectively as a species. So that's the sadness. That's the sadness of our mission today. What about the joy? Well, the joy is that standing in the park, whilst the red revels paraded, I saw two butterflies fly. They were green-veined whites. One was a male, and the other was a female, I think, because it was being pursued by the first. A little bit of biology, a little bit of mating in the undergrowth. If only Sir David had been here. Give a sexual anti-adoption. We have the capacity to make a difference. All is not lost. It's damaged but not lost. Because whilst we've charted the declines of these species and their disappearances, scientists and naturalists have been doing what they've needed to do. And they have put together a portfolio of means which can restore, repair, recover, and reintroduce. I live in the south of England. I got into birds when I was 12. I flicked through the pages of my bird guide, and the idea then in 1970 that I would see osprey and white-tailed eagle in my garden would have been unthinkable. And yet I've seen osprey and white-tailed eagle albeit flying over my garden. That's testament to the fact that we can make a difference. We can make a difference. Notice the word that I'm using as the prefix. We can make a difference. They haven't made a difference. We cannot rely upon them, whoever they or them are. That's why we're here, because we've had that portfolio of means, but we've not rolled them out broadly enough, we've not rolled them out rapidly enough. It's down to us to make that difference. And every single one of you has the capacity to empower yourself to do so. There's no point in sitting back and thinking, I can't do anything, the problem's too big, I'm just a drop in the ocean. But what is an ocean but a multitude of drops? And what can bring you more pleasure than you taking some small step and seeing a positive result? That brings us joy. It makes us feel good. And when we feel good, we tell our friends, our family, our colleagues. And they want to feel good too, so maybe they do the same thing. And then you're not a drop, you're a puddle. And the puddle grows into a lake which flows into that ocean. Do not imagine you are disempowered. This is the time when our species has to reach its zenith. You may think landing on the moon was a big deal. You may think winning the World Cup in 1966 was quite a big deal. My father did. But at this point in time, we've got to do more than we've ever done because we are fighting for our survival. And our survival depends on nature because we are part of it. This is where we really need to stand up. And I'm still using the we word. That's me, that's you. We have to stand up. Because if we sit down and wait for they and them, it's not going to happen. Look at the they and them in this country at the moment. Look at the state of our politics, the state of our schools, the state of our rivers, the state of our NHS. We've relied upon them and they've failed us. Let's take back control. Let's make that difference.
Crowd goes wild.
So here's your simple challenge. We are one species on one planet with one big problem. This is our last one big chance to sort it out. You don't want to not try to sort it out because if you live just long enough and you're dying slowly, a young person might come up and tap you on the knee and they might say, what did you do when you really needed to act? And if you can't look them in the eye and said, I did everything I could, that will be more than painful for you. You do not want that moment. I do not want that. You do not want that moment. Please, set your alarm clocks 5 minutes earlier tomorrow. Spend that 5 minutes thinking on how you can make a difference. Because it's not a case of what our wildlife can do for us at this point. It's what we need to do for our wildlife and our life. Thank you very much.
What does one say to follow up from that? That was an amazing set of speeches from Megan and Chris about that need to act.
Okay. I'd just like to remind you, I want to tell you about something actually. Today we've had, I think, a very pleasant stroll through the streets of Bath, beautiful city. I saw 5 species of birds. I know, it's exciting, butterflies. On June the 22nd, my colleagues and I are putting together a march in London. We'd like the largest number of people ever to stand up for nature. It doesn't matter who you are and what your passion is. Whether hedgehogs, fox hunting, you lead an RSPB group, or you're a volunteer at the Wildlife Trust. It doesn't matter if you're a supporter of Extinction Rebellion or just stop oil. We want everyone who shares a commonality to look after our life to come on the streets with us on June the 22nd in London. The information will be forthcoming at the store naturenow.com. We wanted to do what it says on the tin. So please put that date in your diary, and I look forward to seeing to some of you in London on that day. Thank you very much.
Well, that was a nice little ending. So, 22nd of June, restorenaturenow.com. I think that a lot of people here are going to be part of that. It looks like it's going to be a giant coalition. We're going to look at getting the activist groups, the nature campaigners, getting everybody together to make the biggest stand for nature ever. So this is an amazing prelude to that. And I hope, those of you who have been watching this from home wish that you were here. We wish you would, and you can be with us again, because these are all steps on the road to making change. So if you've been excited by this, you can be a part of this, and we need you. We need everybody to step up and join us. So it's a Saturday, you've got a couple of months to get it down in your diary, to get it free. There's going to be a lot of talk about how to get involved. You can just rock up with a smile on your face, or you can get involved in different roles to help. But we really want people to be part of that movement for change. Now, I think that we're wrapping up this amazing funeral for nature with that call to action, from Megan and from Chris. How wonderful that, famous TV presenters like that come out and join. The crowd here was, and it wasn't just the funeral for nature mourners. The public really heard that, and we hope that you heard it at home. We hope that you've been as moved by this as anybody who participated. It was an extraordinary piece of performance art. A huge thank you to everybody who possible, and I will see you in London on the 20th of June 2024. Thank you for being with us.